Welcome back to Paranormal Roundtable. I'm your host, Josh Turner, and with me is my guest and, of course, my co-host, Barton Nunley. And we got a lot to talk about, so let's jump right back into it and let's continue. Thank you.
You talk about Edwards Air Force Base, because I know that my wife had an experience. She lived when she was young, not far from there, but she had an experience with a white Bigfoot creature. Yeah, and there's a story about that area. There's supposed to be a story about a white Bigfoot creature.
There was for years, for decades, there was a large, either light beige or dirty white Bigfoot down in the big thicket there in East Texas. I've seen it twice. I know a friend of mine, mother and his aunt are from down there, and hell, they used to see it regularly in that same area. But we had two different encounters with it on an outing down there in the very early 2000s. Either dirty white or either really light beige or dirty white. I'm not sure which, but this thing was monstrous. This thing was 11 to 12 feet tall. It's by far the largest one I've ever laid eyes on. And I actually think I truly think that it was probably closer to 12 feet tall. And I have had reliable reports of 12-foot tall dogmen. Very reliable reports.
So tell us about the time that you saw a dogman, Kim.
Well, that was just in April.
Was that the only time you'd ever seen it?
Yep, that's the only time I've only ever seen one dogman, and this past April. The thing about it is, it was less than 5 miles as the crow flies from the very first. And I'll tell you this: the very first Bigfoot report I ever took from anybody, not on this farm, was in 1978 from a family that I grew up with their two sons. That's about 5 miles east of where I'm sitting. And then from the cook at a hunting club that was about a half a mile from there, they both described the same creature. And the description that they gave me was a dogman description, but I didn't know that in 1978 that there was any such thing as dogman, and I blew it off, and I had it categorized for years as it was a Bigfoot report to me. And I had it even written in there that they saw a Bigfoot, but it looked like this and this, and in 1984, I had I got involved in an incident down outside of Troy, Alabama, where two ladies that worked for me had a close-up encounter with a dogman. These ladies had top secret security clearances, and I had known them for a while and knew that they were 100% reliable. And they took me to where they had the encounter, and I found its tracks. And that's when it hit me upside the head that there is such thing as a dogman or a werewolf. And then I realized, sometime after that, that those very first two reports I ever took back in 1978, that both reports were of a dogman, probably the same one, given the proximity of the two. And they, I'm talking about those two reports I got in 1978 were of the same dogman because they were only about a half a mile apart, and they were close to the same time. And so I had to go back and change my report from a Bigfoot sighting to a dogman sighting. And that's why I say any researcher worth his salt has got to be willing to review his data, reevaluate his data, and if possible, and if need be, changed his conclusions based on his knowledge that he then has. So anyway, So I got divorced in March of this year, and I moved from Rogersville, Alabama, to my farm here in Colbert County, Alabama. And normally, to get from Rogersville to Colbert County, you go west on US Highway 72 and to the little town of Elgin Crossroads, and you get on Highway 101, State Highway 101, and you go south and you cross the Tennessee River on Wheeler Dam, and you go down, continue south on Wheeler Dam, you cross Big Nance Creek, and not too far past there, you turn right onto Patterson Mill Road or Patterson Bridge Road, and you go down and you cross Town Creek, and you're in Colbert County. However, the highway department is replacing the bridge over Big Nance Creek, so you have to detour on what, I don't know the highway number, but the locals all refer to it as the Paper Mill Road. As soon as you get across the dam, you have to detour to the left and go down the Paper Mill Road towards where the old Champion Paper Mill used to be, the largest paper mill in the world, where it's at. But you don't go all the way to Champion. You go a ways, and then you turn onto a road that takes you through the little community of Red Bank, Alabama. And I was traveling down the Paper Mill Road, and it was dusky dark. I could still see past. I had my headlights on. Of course, I got a newer truck, so the headlights are on whether you like it or not. But I could drive, could have driven easily without the headlights. And I came around a slight curve in the road, and I was looking, and there was this large creature came up out of a creek bottom. There's a creek that goes underneath the highway there. Came up out of that creek bottom, walked up onto the pavement, stopped, turned slightly towards me, and then back down into the creek bottom it goes. It didn't run across the road. It turned and went back down. And I thought, what in the crap was that? It was far enough out that all I saw was something big, bipedal, and hairy, gray, covered with gray hair. I thought booger, but when it turned, I noticed that the legs looked all screwed up. And in fact, they looked like something out of a damn movie, out of a werewolf movie or something. And they looked like the one good full body picture of a Dogman I've ever seen. I slowed way down. I pulled up and I slowed way down. I go rolling up there to where I saw this damn thing come up and then go back. And I'm looking over there, and I turned my driving lights on. I've got driving lights, what we call ditch lights, on the front of the truck that shine off down into the ditch on either side of the road, and and light up the shoulders of the road. I clicked those on. As I pulled up, I'm leaning over and looking down in there, and there the damn thing is standing there looking at me. Its head it's about probably a 9 to 10 foot drop from the pavement down to the creek bottom. And it's pretty steep. The shoulder of the road is steep right there. And, you'd have to hang on to something, pull yourself up, if you were coming up it. The damn thing was standing there looking at me, and its head was almost even with the pavement. And it had a big humped up shoulder, a big ruff of hair on his shoulders. It had a slender waist, and my lights didn't shine down far enough down in there that I could see its feet and everything. But it had its ears pinned back, and it was looking at me, and it was not happy. And it was it wasn't snarling at me, but it had its mouth open, almost like it was sort of panting a little bit or something. And it was giving me the stink eye. And I wish I could have seen what it was doing with its hands. I wanted to see its hands, but I got focused on its face, and it had its ears laid back, and it made a little move like it was going to come up the bank, and I got the hell out of there. And at that time, I didn't know really how deep it was, so my buddy Jimmy Osmer came over the next day or day or so later, and we went back up there and checked it out, where I saw it, and we were able to determine that dude was right at about 10 feet tall. And it was and as the crow flies, this was less than 6 miles from where I had taken those were Dogman reports back in 1978. This was April of this year. And I never dreamed that I would see a dogman, that I would see a dogman right here this close. I thought I would run into one at like LBL or something,
What year was that again?
Never can tell.
The reports I took was where the I'm gonna call them the Penny family and the cook at the hunting club was in 1978, and that was in like September or October of 1978, and I saw this one over there on the paper mill road in April of this year. So they're still around here now. My brother-in-law saw one run across Highway 72 between Athens and Rogersville back probably 10 years ago. And that, as a crow flies, is maybe 8-9 miles from where I saw this one.
Athens, what state? Georgia?
No, Athens, Alabama.
Alabama, yeah, because there's Athens in like so many different states.
Oh, yeah. Everybody's got an Athens or two. In Missouri, they have an Athens, but they pronounce it Athens.
That's weird. There's Athens, Texas, Athens,
yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, Athens, Alabama is in North Alabama. It lays in between Florence, Alabama and Huntsville, Alabama. But my brother-in-law saw one cross a 4-lane highway and come out of the woods on the south side of the highway, went into the woods on the north side of the highway. That's 100 and something feet, and he did it, and his feet hit the ground three times.
How big was the one that you saw again?
The one I saw was probably right at 10 feet tall.
You saw a 10-foot tall dogman?
Yes.
Unreal.
Now,
how many?
Now the one that the ladies that worked for me saw outside of Troy, Alabama, that dude was at 9 to 9.5 feet. I took a very reliable report from a couple outside of Foyle, Oklahoma, right near Lake Oologah. And I actually went to their house and I took a pole and I had a white paper plate stapled to that pole, and I held it up where where they had seen it, looking at them multiple times over the hedges around their backyard, where they had seen it multiple times from multiple places, and I had each one of them do it individually without the other one seeing it. That dogman was 12 feet tall. And I did the same thing down in outside of Troy, Alabama, and when the booger came up on the highway out of the creek bottom, there outside of Troy on U.S. Highway 29, it came up and it stopped on the shoulder of the road, right near a right-hand curve sign. And I stood there, and they got back in their car about where they were when they saw it. And I stood there, and I held up I had a piece of bamboo, and I stapled a white Dixie cup paper plate, one of them old cheap paper plates, stapled it to it, and I held it up there next where they said it was. They're close to that curve sign, and that one was 9 to 9.5 feet tall. So these things, these aren't just your regular movie theater werewolves.
What do you mean?
Well, the werewolves in the movies are not that big, near that big.
Yeah. And in your opinion, is that what they are? Are they werewolves, or do you think that they're something else? I mean, what do you think they are?
I don't think they're werewolves. I think they're something else. Now, some of them I think may be created, because I know for a fact, an absolute fact, that the Soviets were doing a lot of genetic engineering, and one of the things they were doing was crossing humans with canines and other animals. I will tell you this. I talked to a member of the NSA that I know quite well. We worked together for a number of years. He was sent into some of the former Soviet states when the Soviet Union fell to glean everything he could on the Soviet genetic engineering projects that they had going on in this one particular ex-satellite country. When he got back, I asked him if he found anything. Did he find anything? He said, "Oh yeah." And I said, "Well, what'd you find?" He said, "You ever see the old movie, The Island of Dr. Moreau?" I said, "Yeah, I saw the old original one with Spencer Tracy in it. And then I saw the newer one with Val Kilmer and Marlon Brando in it." He said, "Okay, you know what I'm talking about then." Well, I can tell you this. His exact words are, "That ain't shit." And I'm sorry for cussing, but that was his exact words. But
wow, so they got all kinds of these things probably going on, and it's actually been going on since the 40s. I think the Nazis started all that stuff.
Right. I also can tell you for an absolute fact that they couldn't bring that stuff into the United States because we have a lot of laws against a lot of this genetic stuff. However, there is a European country that's an ally of ours that has some loopholes in their laws that will allow that done. And there is a very, very large medical research company and pharmaceuticals company that owns a very large facility in that country. And now this is a Western European country. This isn't an Eastern European country, it's a Western European country. And that our government pours billions of dollars clandestinely into that facility, and all of that research that they could get a hold of and all of the specimens and stuff that they could get their hands on was taken to that facility. And there were young vet school students in this country that were recruited to go over there and work on that project in this European country, in that facility owned by that company. And
wow, but you know, Tim, that laws are made by the governments for the people, not for themselves. So they don't pay attention to the laws. And right after World War II, they brought 1,600 German scientists over here and set them right up in the United States. It's called Operation Paperclip. So it's probably been going on here since then too.
Yeah. Well, I also know that that there was a project, and it was commonly referred to as the E-Canine Project, Enhanced Canine. These were dogs that looked like normal dogs. However, they could communicate directly with humans. They were smart enough. They had pretty much the equivalent of just about a college education. They perfectly understood. They could read. I have no idea if this is the truth or not, but I heard from one person that they could actually, if they had were standing in some dirt or, a piece of clay or something, or that they could actually scratch out words and letters with a claw. Now, I have no idea if that's true or not.
Well, there's been stories of them wearing uniforms and smoking cigarettes. I mean, it's not that far out of the realm. I mean, we've gotten the stories of that too. You know.
Well, there are. I do know that there were at least 4 of these canines that were brought from this country probably 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago, and to a base here in the U.S. where they do a lot of our advanced military canine training. And this person told me he thought it was Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I don't know that for a fact. I have no idea. I've been on Fort Bragg, but I never, I was there in the west part of the place, and we were embedded when they were doing some exercises over there, and we were testing a particular product, missile command product. And now there was a Bigfoot encounter while we were over there. That's another story. But but I was told that there were 4 of these enhanced canines, and these dogs can understand everything that's said. Some of them can even talk somewhat, but you remember all this crap that went on? There was a big deal about it. It made it in the news and stuff. The military was doing all this telepathy research back in the 80s and stuff. Remember all that, 80s and 90s? It was a big deal. Matter of fact, NASA got involved in it. And in fact, the NASA part of it was called telepresence. And it even was talking, they were trying to develop some glasses or implants or something like that where they could, it'd be like that they were actually there at a place. But anyway, that was going on back then when I was, working for NASA. But anyway, supposedly these dogs, they're handlers, that the handlers and these dogs are able to communicate telepathically, supposedly. Now, like I said, I have no proof of that or anything. All I got is, stuff I've heard.
Yeah, they call them their assets. One of the things you said, Barton, at Operation Paperclip. Here's what I believe about that. I don't believe that those scientists were here to create super soldiers. I just don't. I don't believe that they were here for any kind of weird experiments. It was very simple to me. It was, the Russians, the Soviets, I guess you should say, because there were several of the Eastern Bloc. I think they got the information. They got all of the German information, and then the United States got the actual scientists. And I think their sole purpose was to create atomic weapons. I don't think it had anything to do with that. That's my opinion. I don't want to, because I don't think that any other government on this earth is the blame for anything that we do ourselves. Honestly, I mean, I think that's a big cop out. Not saying what you said, Barton, but I don't think that that's what it is. I think that our own, if you want to call it the shadow, I don't know what you want to call it, they're responsible for doing this. It wasn't Germany and Russia and China and all these other countries that are, we could say it was this science, is that science. It's basically American. I mean, they because I believe that every country on this earth is involved in it, doing it themselves. And every country on this earth has an excuse. They blame the other country for being the boogeyman, but in reality, they're all doing it. And if you go back, I'm really into history, and if you go back into before the Nazis came into power, the NKVD, which was the militant Gestapo-esque arm, which later would become the KGB of the Soviet Union, were killing people on a massive scale. This was even before Hitler came to power. They had been doing it, for 20-something years. I mean, like it was pretty standard procedure for them to kill. It was like I think it was close to 30 years, like 27 years or something like that. That the NKVD was doing what they did. And a lot of these death camps and things that were attributed to the Germans, they were actually in the ones in the East anyway. They were actually in KVD, communist Russian or Soviet camps that the Germans just co-opted after they defeated the Russians in that area. And then when they came back when the Russians or the Soviets came and took the land back, they supposedly liberated those camps, but in reality, the Soviets were using them long before the Germans were. And I think that there's a movement in this country to pin the blame on whoever, but for some reason, communism seems to just kind of get a free pass, and that's not really the way it should be because they killed millions and millions of people. There's no other regime on this earth that could even touch the Soviets or communist Red China, and as far as numbers,
right?
It's unbelievable.
Well, like Stalin, I have seen some pretty accurate figures that the best estimates they got. Stalin killed now there's a lot of little unicorns, and butterflies and rainbow stuff out there that says that Stalin killed, just a few million. But Stalin killed well over 30 million people.
Yeah, I think the higher end estimate's about 55, and I think that's probably more accurate. And there were people. There was a guy that I read an article about, and I can't remember where. It's been so many years, but this guy, he was in a camp, in a Soviet camp in the Gulag. And he was Finnish. He was like a Finnish pilot because, the Finnish were the Germans' allies during Operation Barbarossa. The Germans and the Japanese get all the blame, but they had 11, 12 other allies. It wasn't just them, Right. They had Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary, and they had all these volunteers from all these other countries that were fighting against the communists. They got swallowed up. Well, this guy, he was a Finnish pilot. He said that there was every nationality under the sun in those gulags. He said he met Japanese, he met Mongolians, he met people from Brazil, he met people from Canada. There were even some Americans in there. I mean, it was ridiculous, dude. I mean, he said every nation on earth was represented. There were people from every continent. I'm talking Africa, Asia, Australia. It was unreal. And he said that they were all just there in those camps, just rotting away, dying. And it's just, it was pathetic. It was sad. And you're reading this and you're going golly. I think he himself, it was he spent 6 years and he escaped. And I read another one about a German POW who had escaped from one of the gulags. He said the same thing. Of course, he ended up in Eastern Germany and then having to sneak into West Germany. But the magnitude of what these people did, it just cannot be overstated. I mean, it just cannot possibly be overstated. And we hear every day about the Germans, and they were bad, they did this and that. But it's it's pounded into your head that they were these horrible, horrible bad guys. But we actually helped the real bad guys. I mean, that killed way more people and did way more damage to the earth, which was communism. And I'm not a fan. Sorry, I'm just not a fan of that side. And there's people that'll argue all day that that it was some sort of righteous crusade, but I don't believe in helping one devil to take down another. I just don't think that's correct. And I think that what should have happened, it didn't happen. And the Soviets should have been dealt with. That's my opinion. That country that you were talking about, a satellite country, was it Bulgaria?
It's either Bulgaria or Romania.
Yeah, as I was going to say, Bulgaria, Romania, because that's where the hub of a lot of the munitions and, of course, there were a lot of things that were going on in those countries that were being used by Soviet scientists. The Soviets did a lot of experimentation with canines. You were right about that. They did gruesome experiments that involved even taking, there was one, I know it's a pretty famous video where they took a dog's head and they sewed it on top of another dog's head to see if it would survive. Now, the reason that they were doing these experiments was very vulgar. But the reason for it was very simple. They were trying to come up with a super soldier, and the declassified Soviet documents, people since Perestroika, they've been releasing a different set of them every year. You can go and look them up. if one I encourage people to look up is the bombing of Dresden. That's that one's pretty horrific. But it was predominantly the West that led that, and there was a reason for it too. It goes a lot deeper. We can't get into it on the show, but if you look at these experiments that they did experiments with simians. It was not just, just with canine. And so a lot of people believe that, and there were stories that during the war, German and their allies, I guess, during Operation Barbarossa, encountered the Almasties, these creatures that were a smaller type of Bigfoot, and that the Soviets had captured some too, and they just had them sitting in their gulags. And I've heard stories. This one guy said that his grandfather was from Finland, and he's the one I think that turned me on to the article. Actually, he used to be the museum curator for the museum in Kerrville. It's a historical museum, whatever. But anyway, he was from Finland. And years ago, he told me that his grandfather told him that there was this weird, I don't know what you want to call it. He was just telling us that me and my brother were hanging out with him one night, and he was telling us that there was this creature that they had in the museum, or not in the museum, in the gulag, that was didn't speak, and it was covered in hair, and it looked like some sort of throwback type creature. Now, whether it was something that was naturally occurring or if it was something that they had created because they would do experiments on people, practically lobotomize them, I guess to say, just, and then throw them into the gulag, and they would just sit there until they died. So he didn't know if this was some sort of an experiment or what, but he said his grandfather told him that there was this creature, and when he was talking to another guy that was actually a Russian national that had been put in the gulag because they killed their own people by the millions, he was saying that those creatures were seen throughout the gulags. He had been in another one. And so anyway, it just goes on and on. But I mean, I just think that, we as Americans, think, oh, well, our government wouldn't do that. There's people who will sit there and argue that our government will not be involved in some of these. And I'm thinking, why would you think that?
Right.
I mean, every government on earth is involved in this.
You're exactly right. And those people must have never heard the bill that Congress proposed last year called the Human Animal Chimera Prohibition Act of 2021. Now, this makes it illegal for the government to, among other things, create or attempt to create a prohibited human-animal chimera or transport or receive for any purpose a prohibited human-animal chimera. Now, the Senate killed that. So right now, it's perfectly legal for the American government to create or attempt to create a prohibited human-animal chimera or transport one. So that tells you right there they've been doing this for a long time. If they're just now trying to get some kind of regulation on it or something, they've probably been doing it forever.
Well, let me tell you something that you can research and find without too much trouble. Back in the late 60s, early 70s, you remember they used to have the National Geographic specials that came on TV? Remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, there was one that came on. I remember my dad was really interested in watching it because my dad had a degree in animal husbandry, and he was one of the pioneers of artificial insemination of cattle. So he had a great interest in this. And, we all of us kids, we had to be quiet or risk, instant death. But anyway, this National Geographic show was about crossing humans and animals. And the way they did it is they had developed, what made it possible was the micro pipette had been invented, which it was basically a microscopic glass needle, sort of, and it was so small, and they actually showed it on TV, that they were able to suck up, out of a sample of semen, they could suck up one and only one sperm cell. And then they could take that thing and it was sharp enough, they could penetrate the outer coating of an egg or an ova. And then they could inject that single sperm cell into that ova, into that egg. And there was a bunch of different combinations that they tried that worked. And the thing that they would start combining, the cells would combine and they would start reproducing. Now, on the show, they showed that the thing sitting there growing and growing and growing. And after it, at some point, it becomes and I don't know what the requirements are for this. At some point, the fertilized egg becomes a zygote. And it's sitting there growing and reproducing and reproducing. And at the point that the zygote matures, it gets to the point where the zygote changes into an embryo, it said on the show that the United States law required that the embryo be destroyed. Of course, they never showed one being destroyed, but they said that it required that the embryos be destroyed, and that they were destroyed, is what it said. So they were successfully creating growing zygotes and embryos back in the late 60s, early 70s. The first one and I remember on the show, it said the very first one they crossed was a human and a sheep, if I remember correctly, which is interesting because in the Island of Dr. Moreau movies, I think that was the first one he crossed. Or I know at some point in there, he crossed humans and sheep, at least in the second one. I don't remember about the first one. And then they crossed human and canine. Now, the person who told me about the genetic, the Soviet genetic stuff and crossing humans and canines said that was really easy to do because all they had to do if they wanted a human female to carry the fetus, and carry it to term, all they had to do was raise her body temperature by up from like 98.6 up to like 100.5 or 101 or something like that, whatever a dog's normal temperature is. And then some kind of a diet change. But they said they were able to do it with over-the-counter medications. That it was just something real simple that they could give her to elevate her temperature so she could carry that thing to term. And now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But the person that told me that was a reliable person. And they said that was he told me the technical reason that it was easier to do that than it was for the dog, the female dog, to carry the thing to term. Now, I asked this person, this is after they had been over there and working with this stuff for like over a year. I said, are there walking around specimens of this thing? Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I said, well, how old are they? I said, well, one I personally know is 21 years old.
See, right there. They just introduced that law last year, the bill last year. So,
and this was like, when did Soviet Union fall? 92, 91? This was just a couple of years after the Soviet Union fell. And, they actually got living subjects or individuals from the Soviet research program and took it to this Western European country. And that were still alive and doing well. And, a little tidbit that I was told about the Canines. They're taught to do math in their head. They can even do change. They can calculate change and stuff like that. You know, if and they were saying, he said, you know, it would be a wonderful outgrowth of this would be, you know, seeing eye dogs, because the dog would know if the blind person was getting ripped off or not. The dogs could sit there and figure change and stuff in their head. And he also said that they could tap Morse code with their paw or a claw. You know.
Now we're talking about Dogman, right, Tim?
No, we're talking about the enhanced canines. No,
yeah,
these
just
are
regular canines, but they're
these are regular dogs. They look like normal dogs, normal German Shepherds, normal Labs, normal Goldens, you know, and stuff like that. But they've been crossed,
right? Because I couldn't see any blind person carrying, you know, walking around with a Dogman on the leash.
Yeah. But supposedly 4 of these canines were brought to this country back in the 90s, I think, and to some military installation, and then used in this country for different purposes and stuff. Now, changing the subject, since you guys know, you ever heard of a facility called the DBRF? You ever heard of a?
I don't think I've ever heard of that.
All right, you ever heard of a facility called Plum Island?
Plum Island?
Yeah,
I think so.
It's in Long Island Sound. It's a biological research facility.
Well, you know, that sounds familiar.
Right, I think it's Plum Island.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my damn computer's acting stupid. I was going to look it up, make sure I was giving you the right name. If you look in Long Island Sound, right off the coast of Connecticut, there is a island, I believe it's called Plum Island. There used to be it's been moved, most of it's been moved to Kansas, a biological research facility. And it's also, I have a relative by marriage lives on Long Island, and it's amazing the weird things that over the years have washed up on the beaches there on Long Island. He came from this research facility. Now whether that's the case, I don't know. But
is it kind of like Montauk?
I'm not sure about what Montauk is. I've heard that name.
Well, it's supposedly like the Montauk monster. It washed up on the shore.
Yeah. You're
MK
talking
Ultra.
about Montauk up there in the Great Lakes. Okay, yeah. This thing. Well, supposedly different things. What I was told was that different things have washed up on Long Island, north part of Long Island, at different times.
Well, that's what this is. Montauk. Montauk is it's Montauk, New York. I mean, it's like there's a.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a village up there. I think it's in the Long Island Peninsula or whatever. But supposedly it's the same. I think that's what you're talking. I don't know if Plum Island is the same thing is what you're talking about. But I mean,
well, Plum Island is this research facility. I think it's Plum Island. I'm booting up right now to pull up Google Maps and see if that's the right name. But I do know that there was a big biological research facility on this island out there in Long Island Sound. It's actually right off the coast of Connecticut. And it was shut down here a while back, or shut way back. A lot of the stuff was moved to a couple of different places in Kansas. And some of it's in Manhattan, Kansas.
No, this I just looked up Plum Island, and it's I know exactly what you're talking about now. It's in off the coast of Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a whistleblower. Okay. Well, I don't know. Let me see if I can look that up, because I think there was a guy
for sure. I mean, this is a fact. A lot of the stuff was that was on Plum Island was moved out to Kansas. Now, there was also it was a big deal. It was made public and everything. That I can't remember. Now, I'm not a Kansas. Don't know a whole lot about the university. There's Kansas State and there's the University of Kansas. One of them's in Manhattan. One of these facilities was built in Manhattan, Kansas. There was another one built out in the boonies somewhere, but there was a huge facility that I've heard referred to as the DBR, the Defense Biological Research Facility. And we had been out to, what is that? Let me hang on. I got to get Google Maps opened up. So
because the creature that washed up on the shore was they called it the Montauk Monster. I don't know, Barton, if you've seen the pictures. I don't know if you can look up a picture of it or something, but
yeah, it looked like four-legged decaying creature.
And it had like a beak. It had a beak or something. It just it looked so weird, and people were like, "Oh, it's a decaying raccoon or something." I'm like, "That's not a." If I've been in the woods and I've seen raccoons decaying, that doesn't look like a raccoon to me. It was weird. It was a weird looking creature, and
it was.
Yeah, I knew when you said Plum Island, Coonbo, that I was trying to rack my brain, like, where have I heard that before? And as soon as I just looked it up, it was like, yeah, that's a facility in Massachusetts where there was a big to-do about it because the people didn't want the facility there, and it was an animal disease facility. Which is kind of like where, like if you release viruses and all kinds of stuff that would come out of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, we were out at myself and another guy that he and I had worked together for years. We were out at a military facility out west, and we were driving back. And he says, "Hey, I want to show you something." Okay. So we were in the area near Wichita, Kansas, and we left out of Wichita and we cut down to the southwest and got out in the freaking middle of nowhere on county roads. I mean, this is just, there are a couple of U.S. highways going there. 166 and 160 go through this area. But we were out on dadgum state highways or county. Actually, we were on a large part of it. We were just on county roads. And nothing out there, nothing for miles. And you occasionally see there was a fence along the side of the road, and occasionally you'd see a gate, and an archway, Rockin' Bar J, ranch, and a gate and a mailbox. But it was so far away that you couldn't even see the house or anything. It's off off somewhere. So we rode and rode and rode out there. And so he's sitting there and he's slowing down, keeps slowing down, looking, and he keeps looking. Finally, he said, "All right, this is it." And he pulls off the road on a gravel road, and we're riding along. And we were going south, I know that. And we rode back in there about a mile and a half. And he said, "All right, we got to stop here." He said, "We can't go up here." He said, "Now." And the road went up and over a hill, and just a dirt road, a little bit better than a 2-track. But so we start walking up there, and he said, when we get up on the ridge here, he said, "You got to stay low." He said, "Don't let them silhouette you." We walk along, and we come up on one of these little bitty signs that dude wasn't any more than about 5 inches by 9 inches. It wasn't very big at all. U.S. government property, keep out. Little white sign with blue lettering on it. And then we go a little bit further, and there's and it was, this road obviously wasn't very well traveled. They're sort of in some brush and crap right off the side of the road. There's another sign there, the standard U.S. government sign, U.S. government property, keep out, blah, 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 subject trespassing. And then at the bottom, use of deadly force is authorized. I said, "Dadgummit, what are you getting me into?" And he said, I want you to see this. So we ease up and we look over this little rise. There is a
huge facility out there, and I thought it was a prison. I mean, it's got a big security fence around it. I mean, this thing's like a mile or two long. Enormous facility. It's got guard towers spaced along the fence. Now, we're looking at it from probably a 3/4 of a mile away. And like I said, I'm just guessing that this thing was 1.5 to 2 miles east-west and probably a mile north-south, all behind a serious fence system. Of course, we didn't have binoculars or anything with us, but I mean, you could clearly see the fence and all, and you could clearly see guard towers out there. And there was all these buildings and stuff out there, and there were several buildings under construction. I mean, you could see where they were clearing, where the land had been cleared and dozed and everything, and they were building new buildings, and there were some of the buildings that the concrete was already poured, and they were putting steel up. I mean, this place was big time. And so I said, "What is this?" He says, "This is the DBRF." And I said, "What's the DBRF?" Defense Biological Research Facility. Now, I have never been able to find anybody since then that's ever heard that before. And I don't know if that was the name of it or not, but I'm telling you what, somewhere in southeast Kansas, there is a freaking enormous government something that was built out there back in the early 90s, or back in the 90s. And
not surprising at all.
And I have spent hours looking on Google Earth and Google Maps to try to scan and try to find this. And of course, I know a lot of other places that are secret facilities that you can't find that are expunged off of Google. But I've been trying to find anything, any hint. I've been trying to figure out where in the heck we were, and I can't. And I know one thing: this son of a gun is huge, and I'd love to see what it looks like at night. And I've even tried to talk back when I was with NASA, and still doing a few things with NASA, and I tried asking some of the astronauts that I knew, did they ever see a bunch of lights and stuff down there in southeast Kansas? And well, we don't know what's below us. I never found anybody could tell me anything, But man, there is a ginormous place being built out there, or has been built out there somewhere.
Tim, I want to ask you one more question, if you don't care, buddy.
No.
You've seen Bigfoot, you've seen Dogman, you've seen UFOs. Have you ever lived in a haunted house?
Absolutely.
There you go. So we have one more person who's of high credibility and high intelligence that's saying that they've all experienced these same things. Wolf, we've talked to so many people already that are saying these things, and including myself. I've experienced myself. So, so Tim, that it has to be connected somehow. All these things must be connected somehow.
Well, let me ask you something. You ever been hit by lightning or shocked by lightning?
No, but I've had ball lightning follow right behind me and go through the front door without leaving a mark. I didn't see it, but everyone else saw it, including the guy walking behind me. He just got done playing a game of chess. He came in through the bathroom window. It was about the basketball-sized ball of white light. Got in between me and my buddy, and he had to turn left to go into the living room. So I turned left, and then I turned right. And when I turned right, just went straight right through the front door. And I looked at everybody sitting on the couch and everything, and their mouths are open. And I looked at surprise. I'm like, what in the heck? What's the matter with y'all? And they said, you didn't see that? I'm like, see what? I looked behind me, the guy behind me, my chest buddy, he was like shocked too. I'm like, what was it? My buddy said there was a ball of light that just come through your bathroom window, out your bathroom door, took a right behind you, and then took a left and went straight out the front door. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I didn't even see it. But three other witnesses did.
Yeah, I've seen ball lightning twice. One time and lightning hit a tree behind our house, the haunted house that we lived in, and came down the. I didn't really see it coming down the trunk of the tree because it sort of came down the back side of the tree, but it hit the ground and it went rolling down the hill over the tree.
Wow.
And the other time, I was in a quite compromised position. I was in the restroom, in the bathroom at the Girard Steel plant in Florence, Alabama, which is now closed up. And lightning hit the building. Big, about 150,000 square foot, big steel processing plant. Lightning hit the building, and the column that one of the building support columns was sticking out. Part of it was sticking out into the bathroom, right next to the stall that I was in, and all these sparks and everything shot out from underneath the base of the column, and then there was this hissing, about the size of a soccer ball, this hissing, whitish, slight green tint ball of light that went sort of skittering across the floor, and it went underneath the door of the stall and rolled across the bathroom floor and hit the wall on the other side, and boom, and it was gone. And there was a strong ozone sort of sulfur smell in the bathroom after that.
Wow. Well, there wasn't any smells or anything like that associated with the ball lightning that followed me. I've never seen it myself, but evidently, I've been around it. So.
Yeah. Wolf, have you ever been hit by, shocked by lightning or hit by lightning?
Nope. I had it strike in between me and my dad when I was a kid. When we were remodeling our house, I think in 1983, and it knocked us both to the ground. Like we were, already on the ground, but it knocked us both flat. Let's put it that way. And it struck in between us. It was so weird, dude.
Right. Then you've been in the blast area then. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, it's pretty awful. Yeah. It's been pretty.
Yeah. Well, we've been putting together different things for people like us, and having an encounter with lightning is one of them. Are either one of you even partially ambidextrous?
I am somewhat, yeah.
My house band is hang with either hand. I can't write in cursive with my left hand, but I can paint with either hand, perfectly straight lines. But that's about it.
I can lead with either hand.
I wouldn't call myself completely. Yeah, I wouldn't call myself completely ambidextrous, but pretty much.
Partial. Yeah, most people that have had a lot of Bigfoot encounters, we found, are at least partially ambidextrous. What about if you're around a wasp nest or something? Do they just sort of watch you unless you do something really stupid, or do they get after you?
No, I can walk right through a wasp, cloud of wasps, and never be bothered. But my wife, on the other hand, they don't
bother me. Bugs don't really bite me. I don't really get bit by mosquitoes.
I do.
No,
I get tore up by those mosquitoes.
Mosquitoes don't count, but wasps and hornets and stuff like that do count. Yeah,
no doubt. Another thing. Stung by a hornet.
Yeah. That's another character. I mean, we've got a whole a list of little things that unrelated. I mean, just weird little things that people that we've been tracking this for years.
Seemingly unrelated.
Seemingly unrelated. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Well, I wish you'd go into PRT Roundtable and on the Facebook group, Tim, and post some of your stuff. It's really interesting stuff. We'd love to see that list. We'd love to see any pictures you'd like to post.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a real good group. It's like family. So what you missed at that Dogman conference was about 400 family members all getting together and just having the most wonderful time. a lot of people say it's the best time they've ever had in their whole life, including me and my wife. I think it really is the best.
I've heard that from several people that were there, and it really ticks me off that I wasn't able to make it.
Yeah, you missed something really special.
Yeah.
Well, we'll do it again. Here's the thing: when you were talking about the being stung by wasps, what is that? Because I mean, like I was trying to say, my wife, she actually will get bit by bugs and things and stuff, and I won't. And I've always been like that. I mean, I will get bit by mosquitoes once in a while, but I've worked in places where they're just everywhere, and the guards will be like, "Man, these mosquitoes are tearing me up," and I go out there and they don't even bother me. So I don't really get messed with by bugs, and I don't really have certain. I mean, that's weird. I don't know.
This afternoon, I was trying to get an old tractor running, and there was a wasp nest all in it, and I'm over there beating around on the tractor to see where the wasps come out, and my girlfriend was just freaking out, and they would just fly past me, and I'm disturbing them. And then, so I figure out where the wasp nests are, and I go in there, get me some wasp spray and kill them. But none of them even made a decent pass at me. And then we're looking around, and she spots a couple of hornets on the side of the shed. And we figured out I knew there was a hornet's nest somewhere close because I've been seeing them on my getting inside my screen porch. And I had looked all around the house and up under the eaves and everything, hadn't found any, and looked out in my workshop, around the workshop, hadn't found any. So I'm over here in this shed, about 150 yards away, and lo and behold, we find the hornets. I killed a bunch of wasps that were inside the tractor, under the hood of the tractor, and one of them in the dashboard of the tractor. But then I'm looking around, she sees where the hornets are coming and going out of a window, an old window, and I'm looking up there where there's these other kind of wasps that were up there that neither one of us have ever seen before. They're black and almost an iridescent blue. They actually looked a little bit like dirt daubers, but there was a whole huge swarm of them. And so I got my wasp spray and sprayed them. And man, when I sprayed them, there was 5 pounds more in there than I realized. That they just came boiling out of this, and behind the boards and everything where they were, and they flew right past me, and my girlfriend's about 50, 60 feet behind me, and they got after her, and I ended up having to run out there and knock them off of her. And I was knocking them off of her. They didn't pay attention to me. But that's just something that that we've noticed. I mean, we've got a pretty extensive database of things that we've been keeping track of for years, that most people think we were crazy. But it's amazing. I figured up a little bit of odds one time. There was 5 or 6 of us, or 6 or 7 of us together. And 6 of the 7 had these, like 5 or 6 of these weird conditions that all of us matched. And I got to figuring the odds, and the odds were in the millions to 1 that you could ever get 6 people together that had all these characteristics. And
right, yeah, it is kind of odd. I've never heard that before. Yeah. It's something that needs to be explored a little bit further, right? So I always ask the questions, and we'd love to have you to make your research available to everybody, because we need people to stand up and tell the truth now, Tim, that know what they're talking about. So all these other people that are just pretenders and actors, they can sit down and be quiet for a while now.
Yeah. Well, I'm a show enough rocket scientist, or was. I'm retired now, but I've always, my whole deal, I've never wanted to make any money off of Bigfoot. That was totally
right.
I mean, I had
telling the truth.
It's
what it's about.
Well, all I've wanted to do, my whole motivation has been learning everything I can about them and teaching others.
Right.
That's my motivation, is learning about them. And they are so fascinating. The more I learn, the more questions I have.
And you've been exposed to Bigfoot for so many times.
Yeah.
What's your initial feeling of these things? Are they to be trusted or not?
I don't trust them. I mean, there are some that I have trusted in the past. However, you never know what kind of day they've had, what's happened to them or their family. I can
tell you what kind of day they've had, Tim. They spend all day not worrying about getting killed or even seen by people if they don't want to.
Right.
That's what kind of day they have every day, doing whatever they want, whatever their nefarious missions are or intents are. They don't have to worry about us. So they spend their days not worrying about us. And
I can tell you this. That the dangerous Bigfoot are the ones that old deposed alphas that are now having to fend for themselves, haven't got anybody to groom them or take care of them. Ones that people have shot or shot at, or that someone is accidentally making them mad. Ones that have had a loss of family member due to human accident or interference. And there's just an old one, just one that's gotten old and maybe got bad teeth or something, or has broken a leg or something and can't run down a deer or a hog anymore. Humans are easy prey. I have been involved in quite a number of missing persons, disappearances. And
right. You think Bigfoot?
There is more predation on humans than you would imagine.
Well, we've been handing down stories for 2,000 years now. These things dragging off men, women, and children to eat them. So
right.
That's a very old cultural archetype that we. Yeah. Just like the shapeshifter, the Dogman, the Wolfman. Yeah. It's another one that we've been around as long as we have. So yeah.
Yeah. But as far as what I believe, you should be. I don't care if you feed one off your back porch out your back door every single day. And this has been proven time and again. If something happens and you're not there one day to feed that one, it's going to go crazy. It's going to be mad. It's going to tear up everything to get a hold of. And if one of your family members or a neighbor or something like that, or your pet or your animal or something like it happens to get in this way, they're gone too.
So they're still messing around with your farm to this day. Is that right?
Absolutely. I've had them up on my front porch. I had one on my front porch.
You get a dash can.
Less than 3 months ago.
All right. Get a dash can, put it in the dash can, put it in your windshield of your truck, and like whenever you go in, they're not. You might catch one accidentally. That'd be the only way. Trail cams don't do it. So technically, anybody can come down to your place in Alabama and maybe interact with the squatch or see one.
Well,
say that.
No, I wouldn't say that, but you can hear them out here a lot. And they wander on a pretty wide area. I mean, they're only here, for 2 or 3 or 4 days, about once every 2 or 3 weeks. They wander a pretty wide area.
The ones here in Spotsville don't go anywhere. Here in Spotsville, Kentucky, they've been here at least since 1935, and probably since the settlers got here.
Well, I'm saying they don't leave the area. I'm saying that they're not right here on my farm, here, where they can, where I can see them or something like that. Now, occasionally we'll have some juvies that'll hang around here for about a week, at a time, and then they'll disappear for a while. But there's a tree right here that I can see right off my front porch, even at night. My grandfather told me when I was 3 years old, he took me out there and he said, boy, you see that tree right there? Yes, sir. He said, those catamounts sit up in that tree and watch us, and every time I come out here, they jump down and run off down in that holler right there. He said, I don't want to hear about you coming back there wanting to climb that tree. 3 years old, I hadn't even thought about climbing a tree. I mean, I still remember that because it was such an odd thing, and to hear from my grandfather. And, you don't remember many things from the time you're 3 years old, but I remember that. And,
Right.
And I do remember also that he died not very long after that. I think he was trying to impart some knowledge to me. I think he knew he was dying and was trying to impart some knowledge to me. But, a lot of the things that happened out here were not pleasant encounters. They come up here, out here where I live, you look at the windows on the back of the house, most of them have duct tape over them. There's a reason for that, and the duct tape's on the inside. We ain't got no neighbors behind us that can see us.
Right.
Because my family members got tired of the things coming up looking through the window at them at night.
Yeah, that would be most alarming to just about anyone.
That's one of the most terrifying thoughts to me is looking up in a booger looking through the window at me.
Yeah, I agree.
I know you've seen, some people say it's fake, but you've seen that one, the guy sitting there watching TV, and I think he's in a mobile home or something, and he's catching red eye shine through the window, and he videoed it, and I think they enhanced it, and you can see the thing's head. I don't know if that's real or not. However, there's a Kiowa Indian friend of mine named Randy Yapaw, and he's passed away now, but and he was a friend of a number of my Bigfoot research associates, and he videoed one that was looking through the window at him. I've seen that video. I don't have a copy of it, but I've seen it. So that's a common thing that they do. My sister says she's found their tracks right out here, right outside the window here, like 8 or 9 feet from where I'm sitting. Wow. I found the second night that I was here, when I moved here in March. I think this is either March the 2nd or March the 3rd. I had them out here less than 100 yards from the house watching us, and became aware of them because my dogs spotted them, and I went in the house, and the dogs took off back to the house, and went and got my flashlight and shined out there, and I saw the eye shine. I've got some good pictures of that. One of them was hunkered down right behind one of my utility trailers, and next day, and I got pictures of this too. Next day, I went back there and was looking around, and I found 3 19.5-inch long tracks, 19.5 inches long and about 10.5 inches wide across the ball of the foot. I don't know if that's one of the.
Wow, that's pretty big.
Yeah, the previous Alpha though used to throw 22-inch tracks. Those were impressive.
Yeah, I bet.
I've seen his track several times. I've got a picture of let's see, a Type 3 track that a friend of mine took out in Oklahoma, out in western Oklahoma. That dude is that's right at 20 inches long. You can see the clawed toes too. And it's a three-toed track. Oh yeah, I'll send that to you.
Yeah, send that to me. If you don't mind, anything that you want to share publicly, it's on the PRT page, and everybody would really appreciate it. I know they will.
Well, I've got a presentation I've given publicly numbers of times that I can share with you. I just did it. I've done it twice at Chehaw State Park here in Alabama. and I just did it back here about 3 weeks ago. I've shared it publicly a number of other times. All righty. Well, guys, it's been fun. Any other questions you got?
No, I think that about covered it. I mean, could have gone a little further in with the little people, but maybe we can get you on the live one day and do some stuff. That'd be good.
I know a couple of good researchers that claim that they've had encounters with them. Good researchers that I trust. I've never seen one. Don't know if I want to. But and really and truly, I told you, I didn't get that much from my great grandmother, and basically what she told us was they followed them, and there was 2 groups of some bad ones and some good ones, and the good ones used to try to run off the bad ones. So that's about all I know about them, other than they've got a reputation for being pugnacious and ill-tempered, and supposedly a couple of them and also possibly cannibalistic, and supposedly a lot of our native brethren believe that it doesn't take but a couple of them to drag off a grown man.
Wow.
Yeah.
So in conclusion, like, what are your thoughts on Dogman Bigfoot? I mean, are they metaphysical, or what are they? Are they, I mean, what do you think?
I used to think they were strictly flesh and blood. But based on, the things that I've seen since we've gotten, better technology, and we can see them better and get closer to them. They're something else. I mean, I've experienced them walk through stuff that a snake couldn't crawl through without making a ruckus. And they pass right through it, never wiggle a leaf.
Just like a ghost.
Just like a ghost.
Right.
And never make a sound. I've experienced them, walk right in front of me, 20 feet away across a gravel road that I can't even breathe without crunching the gravel hardly, and they never make a sound. And multiple people see it besides me. Like I said, I've seen them where I can see them on thermal, but I'm talking about just less than 50 feet away, 25, 30 feet away. Clearly see them on thermal, shine a flashlight, and they're not there. And I'm talking about be holding the flashlight in one hand, thermal in the other, and you'll be going back and forth. And 2 of us standing there doing the same thing. I've seen them been in the thermal where we could see their whole body, and all of a sudden they just sort of fade out, and all I can see is just a glowing, a hot, oval, fuzzy-edged oval there floating in the air in front of us,
That's probably their true form, man.
And then I've seen them. I know that I was right up on them. I mean, I could smell their breath. Right up. I knew I was right up on them, and possibly within touching distance. And because of the reaction of my dogs, I mean, they know they're there. I mean, the dogs can sense them, smell them, detect them. I mean, they've already abandoned me. Not just old Bo, but other dogs, booger dogs I've had. And I can't see them. And this is in broad daylight. And there's nothing there large enough that they could hide behind. So I know that they can somehow cloak themselves. I know that their hair, we've collected tons of hair samples. Hell, we've probably got a Bigfoot starter kit. We've found so many hair samples over the years. And of course, they all come back unknown primate, because we've got nothing known to compare them against.
Right.
We haven't got one sitting here.
Inconclusive.
Do what now?
If that can come back as inconclusive, even with
right,
you've got anything like that.
You've got to have a reference.
Right, there's no controlled sample to compare
to. Exactly, you've got to have a reference sample to work off. Sure. People don't understand that. People do not understand. Well, we're going to look out. Oh man, I don't care if you saw the son of a gun sitting there and pull out wads of hair out of his head and hand them to you and say, "Hey, here's some of my hair," and that doesn't do you a bit of good. You've got to have the reference sample that's been proven exactly what it is. I mean, you got to have Harry sitting there in a lab somewhere where everybody can study him, and they documented everything. Now they're out there. Trust me. I mean, the government's got them. The government's had them. They know. And any of you guys ever seen the Miller document?
No, I don't know what that is.
All right, the guy that worked for the government for years, and his job was, he was a zoologist, and his job was doing a bunch of classification and study of Bigfoot. And on his dying bed, he produced this document, and it's known as the Miller document. You can dig around, maybe find a copy of it. And I may have a copy stashed somewhere if it wasn't on one of my hard drives that got fried. It's got all the taxonomy and everything laid out. I have studied that taxonomy exhaustively, and there's not a chink in it anywhere. It is accurate. There's nothing BS about it. And I believe that the Miller document is true, and that the stuff in it is accurate. And this guy documents 6 varieties of them. I personally have been able to find 3 varieties of them that I've been able to document. And some of the area where some of his came from are areas that I've never been: Northern California and Oregon. So, I'm 67 years old, or fixing to be 67, and I don't ever get tired of it. It's almost like an obsession with me. I'm trying, I've got to learn all that I can about them. But the stuff that I can safely disseminate, I safely disseminate.
Right.
And there are a few things that I keep close to my chest, because I have to have something that the general public doesn't know, that I can use as my reference standard to judge people's stories and stuff against. And I know, and I have a set of them for Bigfoot, and I have a set of them for Dogman. And things, little nuances of things that they do, that I know that they do, that we've documented that they do, that and when I'm listening to getting sighting reports and stuff like that, or listening to other people's stories online or in person or whatever, I'm listening for these certain little things, and that helps me know whether they're telling the truth or not. Right. Now, these are things that I won't reveal, but some of my research partners know them, because they figured it out themselves too. So anyway, as far as to directly answer your question, no, they're not the flesh and blood I thought they were at one time. They have some spiritual / metaphysical, I don't know really what the proper word is, but they've got some qualities. They have qualities that we would classify as supernatural.
Right.
And for sure the Bigfoot do. Now, the Dogmen, I don't know. I have not heard. I've heard a few things about some Dogmen deals. I've heard some pretty compelling evidence that there may be two Dogman type entities out there: a true plain flesh and blood Dogman, and there may be shapeshifters / werewolves out there. I had an experience in western Oklahoma that very, very, very strongly points to the existence of shapeshifters and werewolves. And these creatures are more human-sized. But that's something for another time and another audience.
Well, we definitely appreciate you coming on and talking, Tim, Coonbo Baker, everyone. And I appreciate it. Hope that you come on and talk on the live. Maybe one Tuesday night, and we can postulate on some more of these theories. We've definitely recorded a lot of information tonight with you, and so for me and Barton and everybody from the PRT family, thank you for coming on, Coonbo, and to my audience, good night.
Good night, everyone. Good night. It was a pleasure being here.